The Galactic Council sat in silence. For the first time in centuries, every species in the room looked scared. Giant screens showed blurry images of destroyed fleets, vanished planets, strange symbols written in forgotten languages. A single message blinked in red on the screen. They are back. Hi, Chancellor Reeve of the Gorlax Empire stood up, his voice trembling. We warned you all before, but no one believed it. The humans are not extinct. They are not lost. They are waiting, and now they have returned. Many council members shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered to each other, trying to stay calm. Others looked around as if expecting a human to appear. Behind them, the Darnexian ambassador, a proud warrior with golden armor and a sharp tail, stood up and laughed. You all fear bedtime stories. Ghost tales meant to scare hatchlings. Humans were weak, emotional creatures. They burned themselves out in their own wars. They were never a threat to us. Ambassador Cora of the Peaceful Valiants looked at him, her blue eyes full of worry. That's not what the records show. Before they vanished, humans achieved something no species ever has. They cracked time travel, gravity control, even mind linking. Then they disappeared without a trace. Doesn't that scare you? The Darnexian clicked his claws. It disappeared because they were fools. Now you bring this warning again like frightened animals. My empire does not fear shadows. Chancellor Reeve banged the table. Then you are blind. We received a distress call from one of your border patrols. Do you know what it said before going silent? The Darnexian raised an eyebrow. Reeve pressed a button. A voice played across the room, shaking every listener to the bone. It was filled with static and terror. Unknown ship, ... small. Markings, ... nothing works. Weapons dead. Inside our heads, help us, please. We can't silence. The council room froze. No one spoke for several seconds. The ship, Reeve said quietly, matched ancient human designs. Old, simple, but untouched by time. And it moved without fuel, without light. Still, the Darnexian ambassador refused to believe. We will send scouts. Let them see this ghost ship. If it is human, we will crush it. Valiant Ambassador Cora shook her head. You're making a mistake. The humans we once knew are not the same anymore. They watched us, learned from us, and now they return with powers we don't understand. But the council was already divided. Some species voted to lock down their systems. Others demanded proof. The Darnexians launched a scout mission. That same hour, 10 ships. Each fully armed, each carrying elite soldiers. Within 24 hours, only one message came back. It was from Scout Leader Jex, a decorated warrior. His face appeared on the screen, his eyes wide, his skin pale, his voice low and broken. We found it. It found us. ... Ship was silent. But it was alive. ... We tried to scan it, and the scanner screamed. Our thoughts... ... They weren't our own. We weren't. Flying it was flying us. We are not alone inside ourselves anymore... ... The screen went black. Then something new happened. Every system across the galaxy received the same message. On every screen, every radio, every neural link, no source was found. No origin detected. But the message was clear and simple, written. In every known language, you forgot us. We did not forget you. Panic spread faster than light. Civilizations that had mocked the warnings now armed their borders. Scientists searched for traces of old human code. Ancient AI databases began to shut down without reason. Stars that once shined in human systems now pulsed strangely, as if calling someone back, in the dark corner of the galaxy. An old human satellite floated silently, still broadcasting. The message it carried was a countdown, ticking closer to 0. On the outer edge of Darnexian space, the first scout ship drifted empty, no damage, no bodies, no signs of life. Only a single word was carved into the metal hull, glowing faintly under the stars. Observed. Back at the council, Reeve stared at the screen with tired eyes. We gave them peace treaties. They gave us silence. We erased their history. They erased our fear, Now it returns. And still, some leaders refused to believe. The Darnexians began preparing a fleet not to defend, but to attack. They still thought humans could be defeated. They still didn't listen. They had no idea what was coming. Captain Verax stood tall on the bridge of the Darnexian warship Claw of Glory. His ship was built for Warthic armor, high-speed engines, and a crew trained to fight in total darkness. I had crushed pirate fleets and burned colonies that dared challenge Darnexian law.
Yes.
He had never lost a battle. That morning, he expected another easy mission. His orders were simple: track the strange human vessel, confirm its location, and report back. No engagement, no combat. Verax laughed. At that part, how he wanted glory. If the humans had truly returned, he would be the one to bring back their broken ship as a trophy. The crew felt confident. The halls buzzed with pride as gunners polished their cannons and pilots checked the targeting systems. They moved fast toward the sector marked on the Council's Warning Zone 9, once labeled Human Dominion in ancient files. But when they reached the edge of the sector, everything changed. Captain called the radar officer theirs. Something here, one ship, size small, not transmitting identity. Verax grinned. Visuals now. The screen flickered and showed a strange object floating quietly in the dark. It looked like a human ship from the oldest databases. Rusted edges, no energy signature, no movement. Yet somehow it felt wrong. Target it, Verax ordered. Let's scare them. Weapons locked on. Then something happened that no one could explain. All lights on the Claw of Glory flickered, then went out. The engines went silent. The targeting system died. Crew members shouted, trying to reboot systems, but nothing responded. Even Verax's voice felt muted, as if the air around him grew heavy, and then it appeared. Not outside the ship, but inside every crew member's mind. A figure, human in shape, with burning eyes and no face. It stood in their thoughts like a shadow behind the sun. They couldn't speak. They couldn't scream. It wasn't an attack. It was a message. You are not ready to see us. Then the systems came back, one by one. But the ship hadn't moved. The human vessel was still floating silently, untouched, unchanged. Verax, breathing hard, stepped back from the command chair. What was that? Who hacked our minds? The science officer looked pale. Sir, no one sent a signal. Nothing entered. That wasn't from outside. It was from within. Another screen lit up on its own. A single word flashed in bright red. Remember. Verax turned to his crew. We returned to the capital. Now, before they could move, the human ship began to shift. Slowly it rotated. No thrusters, no light, just movement. It didn't face them. It didn't fire. Simply floated away, like a leaf drifting in space. And yet, every crew member knew one thing in their hearts. It could have destroyed them at any time, but it chose not to. Back at the Galactic Council, panic exploded once again. Captain Verax's report was broadcast live. His eyes shook, his words were slow, and his pride was gone. They were inside us, he said. Not just our ship, our thoughts, our memories. It felt like they were reading everything we are. Council tried to dismiss the report. Some called it fear. Others claimed it was a hallucination caused by space radiation. But deep inside, every leader watching that footage knew the truth. This was only the first encounter, and the humans were just getting started. While some empires locked their gates and powered up shields, the Darnexian High Command prepared a full assault. They thought numbers would save them. They still didn't listen. They still didn't understand what humans had become. The Darnexian War Council sat in their grand chamber, surrounded by glowing banners and rows of spiked trophies from past victories. General Therax, one of their fiercest commanders, slammed his claws on the stone table. No more waiting, no more fear, he growled. We are warriors, not cowards. If the humans are back, then we will erase them again. Captain Verax's warning had been dismissed as weakness. They said he had lost his nerve. The images from his ship were labeled as tricks, illusions maybe, even sabotage from other species. The Darnexians refused to believe that one silent ship could stop an entire fleet, so they gathered 10 of their strongest warships, each one loaded with weapons that could melt moons and crush cities. These ships had never failed in battle. They called it Operation Fire, Vela, direct assault on the human vessel. The goal was simple: destroy it, take the wreckage, and send a message to the galaxy that humans were nothing but a fading shadow. General Therax led the fleet himself. As they approached the edge of Zone 9, confidence filled the air. Crews laughed, loaded missiles, and sharpened blades. The smell of victory was already being celebrated. Target locked, the weapons officer reported. The human ship is still drifting? No defense, no movement. Therax stood proudly. Open fire. All ships, all weapons. 100 plasma cannons fired at once. A storm of glowing death headed straight for the strange ship. The blasts lit up the stars, turning the empty sector into a sea of fire, but nothing hit. The blasts vanished mid-space, as if swallowed by something invisible. No explosion, no shield flare, no impact. It was like the missiles had never existed. Confused, Therax shouted, "Fire again with full force." The ships fired once more, this time adding railguns and ion beams. But again, the result was the same. Everything disappeared. Suddenly, one of the Darnesian ships blinked off the radar, then another, and another. No explosion, no debris, no warning, just gone. Screams filled the communication channels. There, inside the system's controls are melting my mind. A silence. The rest of the fleet tried to retreat, but the engines failed. Lights flickered, doors refused to open. Inside each ship, the crew saw strange messages appear across every screen. "We watched you rise. We saw you forget. Now you remember." One by one, the ships began to vanish, not by weapons, but by some unknown force. Whole sections of metal bent and folded into nothing. Crews cried out for help, but no one heard them. General Therax stood frozen in his command chair. The walls around him started to move, not physically, but visually. Patterns twisted, shapes repeated, and the stars outside disappeared. He looked into the void and saw eyes looking back. Not human eyes, something older, deeper, something that had evolved beyond flesh. Then, a voice filled the bridge. It didn't come from a speaker, it came from inside his skull. "You attacked silence, and silence has answered." He reached for his blade, but his arm wouldn't move. His legs felt heavy. His thoughts slowed down. He could no longer remember where he was born, or how long he had served, or why he even hated humans. His final thought before darkness swallowed him was, "This we should have listened." Only one ship survived. A small scout craft that had broken formation early. Its pilot, a young Darnexian named Lua, had feared the mission from the start. Her instincts screamed at her to run, and she had. She watched the rest of the fleet vanish from a distance, her claws trembling over the controls. She made it back. To Darnesian space, eyes wide, speech broken, mind shaking. "They didn't fight us," she whispered to the officials.
They erased us.
But no one could understand her fully. Her brain had changed. Scans showed patterns forming in her memory that weren't natural. Her dreams were filled with unknown languages and images of Earth she had never seen before, and she was not alone. Across the galaxy, whispers of similar encounters spread like wildfire. Ships going dark, fleets disappearing, minds being touched by invisible hands. The Galactic Council could no longer deny it. Humans had returned, but they weren't just human. Anymore, they had become something more, and the galaxy had no defense against them. Ambassador Cora stood in the center of the Grand Hall, her hands shaking, her voice trembling as she faced the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. Behind her, the doors had been sealed with energy locks. The lights flickered low, and every species in the room could feel the fear crawling under their skin. "They're not just coming," she said. "They're already here." The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never been this full. Hundreds of delegates had arrived within hours after the news of the vanished Darnexian fleet spread like wildfire. Rumors turned to panic, and panic turned into chaos. Every communication line was filled with emergency signals, system alerts, and silent sectors that no longer responded. At first, some had called it coincidence. Now, even the doubters were silent. Cora played the last recovered message from the destroyed fleet. A voice barely recognizable as General Therax echoed through the chamber. Broken and hollow, we looked into them and saw something endless, something that remembered everything, including how we laughed at them. Then silence. The council. Members sat frozen in their seats. No one interrupted her this time. Deep hum filled the air as the Grand Hall's security AI locked all exits. Chancellor Reeve, the Gorlax leader, rose slowly from his chair, his reptilian face hard to read. "It is no longer a warning," he said. "It is a judgment." Screens around the chamber lit up, each showing a different corner of the galaxy. Systems were going dark. Entire colonies had stopped sending signals. Starships drifted in space without crew. In one sector, a sun had turned blue for a full hour, pulsing like a heartbeat before returning to normal. Velian scientists couldn't explain it. The Xarxi. Engineers couldn't track it. Even the ancient. Kreen archivists said the symbols appearing in the void were not from any known language. Something impossible was moving through the galaxy, and it carried the fingerprints of only one species, human. The panic grew louder as ambassadors shouted over one another. Why did the humans leave in the first place, who erased their records from our databases? What if they never left? Only hid among us, some accused Earth's allies of hiding information. Others demanded weapons, fleets, and immediate evacuation. But no one had a plan, because no one knew how to fight what they couldn't understand. Then the chamber's lights dimmed. Without warning, a bloodied figure stumbled through the sealed doors as if they weren't there at all. He collapsed too, his knees gasping for breath. It was a Trelvan diplomat covered in ash and blood. His voice cracked like glass as he whispered, "They're not in ships, ... They're inside the stars." The room froze. Cora rushed to his side. "What did you see?" His hands trembled as he raised a small metal cube. It glowed with strange light and symbols that shimmered in patterns unknown. "We thought we found a derelict base deep in the void, but it was alive. It was thinking. It showed us things we shouldn't have seen." He looked up at her with wide eyes. "They built things not with metal but with thought. They walk through time. They know our secrets. They know what we fear." He collapsed in her arms, breathing his last thought behind him. The energy-locked doors of the Grand Hall glowed with a new symbol, one that none of the council members had seen before. Yet every single one of them somehow recognized. It was the ancient, a symbol of Earth. No signal had been sent. No enemy had entered, but the message was clear. The humans were listening, and they wanted the galaxy to know it. Within minutes, the Velian sector activated their full planetary shields. The Kreen sealed their wormholes. The Xarxi burned their quantum gates. The Gorlax launched a blackout protocol for their capital system, but it was already too late. The systems that had ignored the first warnings were already gone, and the ones that remained didn't know how to stop what was coming. From the center of the galaxy, a new pulse spread like a wave, silent, invisible, that felt by every living being. It wasn't war. It wasn't revenge. It was something colder. It was the return of the forgotten, and this time, they weren't asking for permission. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, where stars no longer burned and light itself seemed to fear entering, an old moon drifted in silence. No one visited it, no maps marked it, and no signal had come from it in over 2,000 years. But deep, beneath its surface, something had waited. A lone Velian explorer named Darrow stepped onto the dusty surface, guided only by whispers he couldn't explain. He hadn't been sent here by his government. Something else had led him visions, dreams. Patterns appearing in his food, in the stars, in his thoughts. The moon was hollow. Beneath the cracked rocks, there was a chamber sealed by metal so old it turned soft to the touch. Darrow entered through a narrow path that led to a door with no handle. No lock, no opening. Then it opened for him. Inside was a room filled with light that didn't cast shadows. Machines floated in the air without support. Symbols danced across the walls, changing shape with every breath. In the center stood a massive cube, pulsing slowly like a sleeping heart. Darrow stepped forward, and the cube spoke, not with sound, but directly into his mind. You seek truth. Prepare yourself. Images rushed into his brain memories, not his own. Thoughts not formed by his mind. He saw Earth not as a ruined blue planet, but as a shining world filled with towers of light and minds that worked faster than machines. Saw the early days, when humans had begged the Galactic Council for peace, for trade, for understanding. But the Council had feared them. They saw humanity's potential, their hunger for knowledge, their emotional strength, and called it dangerous. So, they agreed in secret to remove them. They used a virus, silent and clean. They blamed wars. They altered history. They buried Earth's records and scattered what was left of its people across distant systems. But the humans didn't die. They evolved. The virus didn't destroy. Their minds had changed them. Those who survived became something else, something beyond time and matter. They left physical space and stepped into a layer of reality the Council never understood. A place where thought became power, where memory shaped matter. They learned to live in silence, in hidden dimensions, in the folds of gravity and the waves of forgotten frequencies. They watched the galaxy forget them. They watched their name turn into a myth, and they waited. Darrow dropped to his knees, mind burning from the truth. The cube pulsed again and released a final message. They didn't vanish. They ascended. And now they returned not as prey, but as memory's wrath. Suddenly, the machines inside the chamber activated. Screens lit up with images of current space. Systems across the galaxy were being touched. Fleets were going blind. Councils were falling silent. And deep in the center of it all, something massive was forming. A shape with no structure, visible only through gravitational echo. It was moving not like a ship, but like a storm. A human storm. Darrow activated the emergency beacon. His body was shaking, but he knew the truth had to be shared. Back at the Galactic Council, the signal arrived. Leaders gathered once again, expecting. Bad news? What they saw silenced them completely. The recording showed Earth live. It's untouched, but glowing with impossible energy. Human structures floated above oceans. The laws of physics bent to their will. And then came the last message from the ancient cube. You deleted their names, so they carved them into space itself. The Council's silence broke into shouting. They knew all along they never needed our approval. They were never our enemies. We made them one, but it was no longer about politics. The galaxy had awakened something it could not return. To sleep, the secret was never that humans were gone. The secret was that they had. It's become something greater while no one was watching, and now. The entire galaxy was staring into the eyes of its forgotten past, eyes that remembered every betrayal, every lie, every silence. No ship entered orbit, no signal traveled through space. No transmission came through the usual channels. And yet, across the entire galaxy, gray. Every living being stopped whatever they were doing at the same moment. A voice appeared in their minds. Not like thought, not like memory, it felt real. Like someone was standing right beside them and speaking directly into their soul. You took our voice, now you will hear it. Across stars, across planets, across every language and species. The message was the same. Simple, clear, human, in the Galactic Council chamber. Leaders stood frozen as every wall lit up with light. Not from projectors, not from tech, but from something else, something older, something alive. The air itself shimmered, and then they saw him. One figure stood at the center of every chamber, every capital, every broadcast. He was human. His clothes were strange, flowing like mist, but glowing like metal. His face was calm, No anger, no hatred, only stillness. He did not move his lips. But his words reached everyone at once. We offered peace. You answered with silence. He turned his head slightly, though he wasn't looking at anyone. Somehow, every being felt like he was staring directly at them. We came as children, seeking stars. You buried us in shadows. On a farming moon in the Velian sector, a child fell to his knees and cried without knowing why. On a military ship, in Kreen space, soldiers dropped their weapons as their helmets began to crack from pressure that wasn't physical. On Earth's old orbit path, now empty and feared, satellites that had been dead for centuries lit up again with one word repeating, return. The chamber, Chancellor Reeve tried to speak, but no sound came. His mouth moved, but his thoughts were gone. All he could do was listen. The human figure continued. We watched your rise, we watched your lies, and we waited. Not for revenge, for understanding. We walked slowly forward, even though his feet never touched the ground. You feared what we could become, so you chose silence. But we do not fear becoming. Across the galaxy, machines failed. AI systems turned off. Ships stopped in mid-flight. Not because they were attacked, because they were shown something greater. The message kept going. We do not bring war. That is your way. We bring the memory of what you tried to erase. And memory does not fade. One by one, the images. On every wall shifted to show ancient history. Humans reaching out to alien worlds, offering gifts, technology, knowledge. Each time they were turned away, ignored, mocked, feared. Then came the part no one had seen before: mages of human. Survivors walking into strange lights, vanishing through curved doors, climbing invisible stairs into the void. They had not died. They had moved on. The human figure turned his head again. Now you have seen us. Now you remember. And then silence. The lights faded. The voice was gone. The human was no longer there, but something had changed. Every species across the galaxy had heard the same voice. Every ruler had seen the same face. Every mind now carried a mark, a soft echo, a whisper they could not unhear. Back in the council chamber, chaos broke out. Is this the end? Was that a warning or a command? What do they want from us? But there was no clear answer. Only Ambassador Cora stood in silence. Her hand pressed to her chest, her eyes filled with understanding. They wanted us to listen. She said softly, and now we finally have. The council tried to regroup, but many members had already left. Some rushed back to their homeworlds. Others ordered lockdowns. Few sent messages of peace toward the edge of the galaxy, hoping someone might answer. But no one knew where the humans were now, and no one knew what they would do next. The galaxy had heard a single human speak, and that one voice had changed everything. The galaxy held its breath. After the voice of the human echoed across every system, nothing else followed. No more messages, no ships, no demands. Just silence, like the calm that comes before a storm, or after a judgment. In the weeks that followed, some called it mercy. Others called it a warning. But no one called it a mistake anymore. The Darnexian Empire, once proud and loud, had gone quiet. Their main fleet was still missing, and their capital city hovered over empty streets. Statues of victory had been pulled down, replaced with glowing signs that read one word: listen. In the Velian sectors, temples were filled with people, lighting candles for a future they could not predict. Some prayed to the humans as gods. Others feared them as watchers. But all of them agreed they would never be the same again. Across the Kreen archives, thousands of scholars worked day and night, decoding forgotten human languages, reactivating old Earth data, and trying to understand what had happened. One scholar found a message buried deep in a lost system. It read, "The future is a choice, not a punishment." And it was true. The humans never fired a shot. They never took territory, never destroyed cities. They only appeared and reminded the galaxy of what had been hidden, of what had been denied. Now, the decision belonged to those who had once erased them, submit or disappear. But humans had not spoken in words of war. They had spoken through memory, through presence, through fear without violence. On a distant planet called Rixer, the leaders of 5-star nations met in secret. They debated their next move. "We could build new weapons," said the Sarn general. "Quantum bombs, starbreakers, something to show we won't be ruled." The others shook their heads. "Their weapons are thought," said the Velian ambassador. "They destroy nothing, yet leave entire systems hollow." "Their power is not to fight," added the Xarxi scholar. "It is to show us what we truly are." At last, a decision was made, not just by one empire, but by many. Messages were sent, monuments were raised, not as symbols of surrender, but as signs of remembrance. Across the stars, planets lit beacons in human colors. Blue for memory, white for peace, gold for respect. One by one, civilizations made their choice not because they had been forced, but because they finally understood humanity had never needed ships to conquer. They had conquered time. They had mastered silence. They had become living memory. On a once-lost Earth-like world, overgrown with vines and ruins, a single child found an ancient statue buried under stone. It was a human figure, arms outstretched, eyes closed, face calm. Carved beneath it were words that glowed as the child brushed off the dirt. "We offered hands. You turned away. Now you reach back. We remember." The humans had returned. Not to rule, but to remind. The galaxy had made its choice to remember, and in that memory, truly hoped that maybe this time they would not lose each other again.